Hi, my name is Rachel Fajardo. Today I'm going to be speaking on the theme, not really speaking, but sharing with you a Torah portion from Genesis 31, 43, and it goes on to read through chapter 32 and verse 3. And I want to speak to you on the theme, respect for boundaries. We're living in a time where we keep making excuses for people and saying, people that have no regard or respect for who we are, what we do, and what God has entrusted us to do. And so when we do not let people know our boundaries, we give them permission. We give them a license to do it, to disrespect again and again and again. We don't put that line. We used to say before, and sometimes make a joke of it, when we would challenge people, we'd say, we'll cross that line, and we'd visibly make a line. And it was kind of like a running joke because, people kept crossing the line. But in life, there has to be boundaries. And boundaries have to be respected. And today's Torah portion is the story of Jacob, who suffered so much dishonor, embarrassment, abuse from his father-in-law. And this is a whole family story here. And so we're wanting to establish, the Bible is wanting and establishing the fact that there has to be boundaries, not only with family, with other people, with co-workers, with people that we engage with or do business with. There has to be a boundary of respect. So here, Jacob had taken every type of dishonesty and financial abuse imaginable to himself and to his family. Now, it's one thing, well, that's just me. I don't like to, stir up a lot of dust. I don't want to, make any waves or whatever. But when it involves your family, it's time to step up, because it's not just you. It's not just, he and I. Now it's involving your family, and you're responsible to care and protect and provide for your family. So we're seeing here that he took this abuse like for 20 years from his father-in-law. He burned him in everything. And so what's the difference now? Because in this chapter, we find that Jacob rebukes Laban, his father-in-law, and he draws that line. He says, enough. He says, for 20 years, 14 years I served you, and worked my head off for you. 14 years for your daughters, and then these 6 years you changed my wages. You ripped me off. You took my money and what is supposed to be the provision for my family and my children. You did that. You changed my wages, the Bible says, over 100 times. Now 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 100 times you changed my wages. So now he's rebuking him and putting him in his place. What happened to Jacob? Why after so long, now things have changed? Well, what happens, beloved, is that he understood that now was the time. Timing is everything. You can swallow it, take it, excuse it, say, oh, that's the way people are. And there's a very renowned saying that says, when people show you their colors, believe them. He's been showing you, or they've been showing you, or your job, or your boss, or the organization, or your wife, or your husband has been showing their colors consistently. And the saying says, when people show you their colors, believe them. That's who they are. And when we don't nip things at the bud and establish that respect, that boundary for respect, then again, we're giving people a license to step all over us. Now, this is Jacob. This is the patriarch Jacob. and he's taking all this stuff. What changed? What happened? Well, timing. The time changed. And what happened is that God spoke to him and he said, okay, roll it up, wrap it up. It's time to go. And don't just leave. Don't leave at night. Don't leave. Don't pack up and and run like a coward. He says, I want you to get all of the things that belong to you, and I want you to go out in broad daylight. Let them see you. Why? Because it was time. God always has, as we should have, an hasta aquí. That's it. That's it. We're done. We're done. And when God backs you up in that, that's the time. And that's why he was able to rebuke Laban and tell him, no more. It's over. Party's over. And so we see that timing was everything. God told him to pack it up. God told him no more crossing this line. So he went out in broad daylight, and God told him, not only are you going to go, but I got your back. And what do you find in that, in the interest of time, saving a little time? I gave you the reference. Read it for yourself. I'm not going to come by here and tell you something that's not in your Bible. So God said, the Bible says that night, he was already 3 days ahead. He went out, and then Laban found out he's gone. The workhorse is gone. Your pillow and your bank cards are gone. Why? Because they didn't belong to him. And so when he takes off to catch up with him on a 3-day journey, when he catches up to him, right before he does, God spoke to him. God will speak to people, and they don't have to be righteous and godly. God will speak to wicked people, evil people, and he'll get his message across. And what he told Laban is that when you get to him, he said, don't speak a word to him. Meaning, he had a lot of conversation, but he meant, don't try and bring him back. Don't try and persuade him to stay or to go. Just shut your mouth. I'm paraphrasing now. Shut your mouth and let this thing play out. Well, he caught up to him, and that's when he started telling him. Laban's workers and sons were telling him, "Oh, he burned you, Dad. He took all your money. Everything he took, it's not him. He's a thief. He's a robber. He messed over us. He burned us, and this and the other." And they're telling a bunch of lies. Sometimes, you're working your head off. You're doing everything that you can in an attempt to keep peace and to keep things calm. But when God says that's it, roll it up, pack it up, get your wives on that donkey, take everything that belongs to you, and get out, and I'll protect you. I got your back. So what had changed? The timing. God said, that's it, up to here. This is where we stop, and this is where you leave. And also the timing and the fact, the assurance that God's got this. Sometimes you think, well, I'm going to be up on my own. I'm going to get ostracized, and they're going to criticize me, and you're going to put me on the black book. Forget about all that. When God tells you to go, you go. Why? Because he's got your back. He's got your back. And what he told to Laban, he gave him a warning. Try it. When you catch up to him, you don't tell him a word. You don't touch him. You don't do anything. You just go and, again, play this out. So when God's got your back, you don't have to worry about it. What are they going to say? And, we're going to lose people, and we're going to lose the family, and, and there's going to be division. When God says it's time, God says it's time. And when he says, I've got your back, let somebody make my day, cross that line when God puts it there, and see what happens. Make my day, because God told me to go, and God told me, I got this. Don't worry about your enemy. So those two things changed, and other things changed too. What changed was the timing, the fact that God had his back, and the mission changed. See, when Jacob's mother told him to go, when Rebecca told him to go, it was because his older brother Esau was out to kill him, and he said, go to the land of my father, go over there. And he went, and it was a long journey, because he made a stop at a yeshiva, a place where they study Bible. It was the yeshiva of Eber and Seth. And he stopped there to make sure he was equipped, because he was going to a place that, he didn't know how it was going to go. He was going penniless. He was going with no money. Esau's son, I believe, had robbed him of everything on the road. He was sent to kill him, and instead they worked something out, and Jacob said, well, take everything that I got. So he went to that place penniless. And our scholars and sages say, watch out for the sons of poor people. Watch out for them, because they're the ones that are going to teach the Bible. And sometimes, why is that? Because those parents are going to invest everything, and they're going to make huge sacrifices to make sure that their sons get the teachings, the Bible's teachings, and stay with this. They're going to make huge sacrifices, going out to, donate their time to build up churches or ministries or works, humanitarian works, and it's going to cost them. So the sages give that instruction. Watch out. Watch out for the sons of the poor, because they're the ones that are going to teach Torah. And when you go out and you do a work, or you establish something, or you're trying to, keep your home godly and things, in order so that you can build, for your future, for the future of your children, it takes sacrifice. Sometimes it takes huge sacrifice. And Jacob was building and building and building and getting burned on his finances, while Laban was living high off the hog. He was struggling and working day and night. So what had changed? The mission. His godly mother, she was a prophetess, and she told him, go, because Esau is going to want to kill you because of the birthright. And so he leaves, but the mission changed. He didn't go over there to change Laban or to change people or to do anything. He went over there running for his life, and now the mission has changed. Sometimes we don't set boundaries because we're doing it in the interest. Maybe they'll change, or maybe, my kindness or my, forgiveness and everything that I swallow and tolerate and everything else, maybe that's going to change them. You're not going to change nobody. We're not going to change nobody. His mission changed. Now he had to take care of his family and take care of himself and make sure that, he was okay. So sometimes we stay with it. Maybe one of these days they'll change, or she's not really like that, or he's not really like that, or they're not really they're just like that. And your mission is not to change them. Your mission is to change yourself and let God make the changes in the people that are surrounding. 20 years and nothing? Come on. The mission had changed. He didn't go there to change his in-laws. The mission was to follow his holy mother's instruction and to preserve his life. So sometimes we stay with it, and we're doing more. Oh, well, we're staying for the kids. Really? The kids don't need, they don't need anything. The kids, interpret sounds. The kids interpret, our actions. The kids interpret, the vibes. They do not need spiritual discernment to guess that something's wrong in the house, and it's really, really wrong. And so here's Laban, and he's seeing, his wives are seeing that, his children are seeing everything. And God says, go ahead. When it's God telling you, go ahead. I got this. I got the timing, and I got your backup. That's all you need. When you see that and it's green, you better run. Don't groom the horses and the camels too much. Get going. So the mission had changed. He was there to do what God wanted to do, to begin a family, and that family that he began there were going to turn out to be the 12 tribes of Israel, and they were going to become a nation, and God was going to do so much. So while we're thinking, well, I don't know, nothing's happening, God's working in the background. I don't see nothing. You don't need to see nothing. He's working in the background, and he's always working on our behalf. Well, I don't see nothing. You don't have to see, you don't have to hear, you don't have to do anything, because God's going to talk to your enemies and take care of that. So that's the second thing, that the mission had changed. And thirdly, they were saying a lot of things. Laban's uh, sons and his servants. They were saying, and Laban comes out and he makes the remark. He makes the remark and statement to Jacob and says, you took all my stuff, and these are my kids and my grandkids and this and the other. He was making big claims. You got rich off of my wealth. He was making a lot of claims. But when it comes to your family, be prepared to fight for your family. That's your family. I have 4 kids. Pastor Cal and I had 4 children. He's with the Lord, and he passed away. But those are my 4 children. I birthed those children, and we did it. Together. God blessed us together with our family. But he's now receiving his reward, and I got a responsibility. Oh, but they're grown. Oh, but they're men. Oh, but they're already gone. Oh, but they're married. Oh, they have their own children. I'm still the matriarch. I'm responsible spiritually for my kids. What they do, that's between them and God, but I have a responsibility to lead and direct. And when they don't want to hear or anything, that's on them. But that doesn't take my obligation and my spiritual responsibilities. And so we can't just wash our hands. We have an input. Sometimes it's a silent input. Sometimes it's, instructions. Sometimes it's through prayer, bombarding heaven and letting those prayers land at the throne of God. And then God, moving on your behalf. Why? Because he heard your cry. Sometimes it's going to be you, mom, or dad, or whoever, is leading the children. You're going to have to bombard heaven, and you're going to have to believe God to do the impossible. So we don't lose that. So here's Laban saying, these are my kids, and these are, well, you were never on the labor table. God gives our children as a blessing, and they are there to bless us. But we can't have them divided and being destroyed because we're still tolerating, because we were too afraid, too intimidated. We were told that, you can't do this, and, you're just a woman, or you're just, some guy. Nobody recognizes you. Nobody sees you like a spiritual leader. When God calls you, you got a call on your life. And that call is to lead and to do and work the purposes of God. His mission had changed. Now he was there and to perfect that world in the only way that he could, by staying close to God. When later on in the following chapter, when Esau is coming at him with 400 men and an army, and Jacob thinks he's gonna kill him, and he's making peace offerings and everything else, and trying to take care of his family because he left Laban. And so Jacob sends a message to Esau, his brother, that is out to kill him. And he tells him like this in 35, I think it's chapter 35. He sends his servants, and he says this. He says, don't trifle with me. He uses the Hebrew word, it means trifle. Don't mess with me. Because 20 years I've been here with Laban, and I haven't followed his evil ways, and I have kept everything according to what God has told me, in obedience to my God. So sometimes, let people talk, let them do it, let them threaten, let them come at you with everything. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to get this, and, you're going to be in poverty, and nobody wants you, and blah, 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 blah. Let them talk all they want. But as long as you know that you have been right and a righteous person before God, don't worry about it. Because if they do trifle with you, they're going to meet the same God that showed up on Laban and said, shut your mouth. Don't tell him nothing. Don't try and encourage him this way or that way. This is my servant. So I'm taking a little bit of time, but again, the theme of this is set up boundaries. Set up boundaries. He did it for him, and he did it for his family. And so when there's warfare, you're going to have some fighting to do with your enemy. And so what Laban suggested, and he said, well, let's build a monument right here. And let's make a covenant so that you never come back here and with evil intentions to take me out. And he said, and the covenant will be for both of us. I won't cross this mound because to do you any type of evil. So they made that agreement, they made that pact. The next day they ate and they made that pact. But that mound was not a wall. It was not a wall. And I conclude with this: it was not a wall. What it was is it was stones. It was a bunch of stones that were put there so that they can permeate, so that Jacob could permeate. And isn't it interesting that Laban didn't lift one finger or send his servants to help make that pile of rocks, of stones? Jacob did it all. So he made it on purpose, so that he knew that at certain times he had to make it semi permeable where he could go through it. Because why? Because when you leave certain areas that you have worked and you have and God has helped you and given you success in something, then I've always believed that God revisits places of sacrifice. And Jacob knew that wasn't going to be his last time going in. Sometimes you might be in another part of the world, in another country, in another city, in another state or whatever, but you made an investment. And sometimes you're going to have to go right through those mounds and cross over for business. You're going to have to conduct your business. And what is our business? I love the way that Pastor Cal, my late husband, would always put it. He says, we got a job to do. Our job is to snatch souls from the devil's hands. And Jacob was going to have to be crossing that too. We have business, and he knew that he was going to have to cross Laban's realm for that business of harnessing the sparks of holiness that reside there. But he would do so while remaining detached from the evil influences that were there. Sometimes you're gonna have to, cross borders. You have business. You have business. And I close with this, every now and then I'll come back here to San Bernardino. I come back on business. Why? Because there are sparks of God that were lifted up here. There are stones that were mounded up, and I crossed through that. Why? Because I have work, and my work is not finished. I have family here, and my work is not finished. So people will try and block, people will try and stop, people will try and discourage. But as long as you know that you are part of those mounds, those stones that were set up there, and we do keep peace, but please know that where God, has called us to, where God has placed us, we have business. People don't get to lock you out. People don't get to erase your memory. People don't get to dismantle history. History is history, and we have history here in this city and many other cities. And that's why we can call. We're coming in, and this is what we want to do, and we'd like to collaborate, and we have stones that are there, and we have business to conduct. So whether that be in ministry, whether that be in life, whether that be with your future job, your business, or whatever, don't put up a big wall, because things are not finished yet. And so as long as we are setting up boundaries, that was the boundary that Jacob built. You can have access to cross over, but by the same token, crossing over, you don't align yourself with whatever the ideology is there. You don't align yourself with the church politics like we see it rampant everywhere. You align yourself with the teachings of God and what He is doing. Please, please, please reconsider. If you haven't put boundaries, you don't have to say why you have the boundaries. You don't have to say, because of this, and if I don't do this, it's not going to be good. You don't have to give no reason for the boundary. The boundary is to be respected. And all you have to say is that I can't tolerate that. I will not tolerate that. It's over. You changed my wages 100 times, and that's over. God bless you.